Good evening and welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live from beautiful Cape May, New Jersey. It is indeed a beautiful day in Cape May, New Jersey. And I'm coming to you via SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. Welcome, TGIF, happy Friday and all that good stuff. Hey, Gary and Brian and Dwight. Hello, welcome to the Facebook chat. My guest today is Daniel Punnose. He's the Vice President of Gospel for Asia. He's going to talk to us about the water crisis in America, and really it's a global water crisis. So I'm kind of excited to talk to him about that today. I apologize for having been MIA. It's been a particularly rough week. For those of you who watch me on Facebook every now and then, my little fur diva, Miss Asha, would make a little appearance. And because she gets antsy while mom is doing her thing. Unfortunately, I had to put her down on Wednesday. Now, those of you who follow me on Facebook probably already knew that. And I thank you. I want to thank you all for your prayers. I felt them and still feel them. So thank you so much for your prayers and thank you for your support. Brian's, yeah. So it's been a little, this is actually my first show, without her laying right next to me. So, bear with me a little bit, but she would have suffered. We were together for 16 years. So it was, she's outlasted a husband and a couple serious boyfriends. So, but I wanted to thank you guys, all you guys who prayed for me and shared your thoughts about her. I wanted to thank you guys for that. And before I am in tears, I'm going to move on. If you want to follow me on social media, you may do so at MoneyTalk Mel. That's the show page. If you want to follow my political musings, you may do so at NJGOP Diva. And of course, you can like the Facebook page, Money Talk with Melanie. And I thank all of you who already do. You completely and totally rock. Somebody in the Facey chat, my guest is on hold. Somebody in the Facey chat said it's a great topic. So that's good. I'm starting, out of the box. I've been MIA all week, kind of, since Monday. This happened with Asha on, I believe it was Wednesday, actually, right before my show. So, and usually I'll give you guys a heads up if I'm going to do a re-air or something like that. But Mike Fitzpatrick will be back next month. He's the weekly guest, and he was the guest that was scheduled. Such a blessing on timing. Mike Fitzpatrick also happens to be a friend. And he's a regular. And, when I called and told him that, we weren't going to be able to talk that day, he prayed with me. It was just really, I'm grateful for that. Okay, moving on. The Money Talk News Report. Apparently, we'd have that meeting with North Korea. It's scheduled. That's what I hear, but we don't know the time and the place just yet. But it's on the calendar from what I understand. So that's good news. Like, averting nuclear war. that's probably a good thing. So that is now financially, in financial news, oh my goodness, how about this? And I didn't hear this once on the news today, and I listened to the news most of my way home and I didn't hear this, that the unemployment rate fell to 3.9% in April. That is nearly the lowest this century. Now, this is according to a report on LinkedIn that I saw. It says that the drop was driven in part by a reduction in the workforce participation to 62.8. That makes a lot of sense. The lowest since the 1970s. And we also created fewer than the world's biggest economy. Okay, also created fewer than expected jobs last month with 164,000 new non-farm payrolls instead of 195 predicted by economists. But still, the rate is 3.9%. That's cray-cray. I'm sure somebody's going to say that it's because of, it's probably because of all that Obama set up for 8 years. which, as you know, as much shade as I throw on President Trump, you know, the economic policies are doing what they're doing. I wish people just would be like a little more intellectually honest about that. Anywho, it's politics. What are you going to do? Walmart beat Amazon out in a bid for a majority stake in a company called Flipkart. This is according to Bloomberg. The deal is worth $15 million. So Walmart's going to secure about 75% of the Indian e-commerce site. Now, you know, when I hear that Walmart outbid Amazon, you guys know, like, I'm a big fangirl when it comes to Amazon. Let's face it. Although people tell me, like, ethically I shouldn't, but I mean, Amazon Prime, just saying. I you know, the other day, yesterday, or during testing week, my kids were fried. So instead of making them do actual real work because they have been testing for 4 hours, doing standardized tests, we watched Shark Tank. I teach financial lit, by the way, so just, you know, it's relevant. But we watched Shark Tank, and you know, listen, it is all very important. I got it. The episode, that was my point. The episode that I got was from Amazon Prime. It cost me $2 to show my kids a movie, or a TV show, I should say. I'm just saying. That's Amazon, you know, and convenient. Like, I decided at the last minute because I felt bad for them. And I was like, let me pop onto my Amazon account and see if I can find something relevant for them to watch. And I paid $2 and we watched an episode of Shark Tank because I'm a Prime member. I mean, that's pretty priceless if you ask me. It was like the most recent season too. So I think it was season 9. So I don't know. I'm a big fan. What can I say? But I said all that to say that it gives me pause that Amazon allowed themselves to be outbid. Not that Walmart's a slouch by any stretch, but it'll be interesting to see how that turned out. Now, this is of serious concern. I love how this is reported too. Twitter has urged its 336 million users to change their password. Really? You're urging us to do that? Hey, Ron Edwards in the Facey chat. How are you, man? Good to see you. So, yeah, Twitter wants us to change our passwords. I mean, and this is not the first time. Now, apparently, they feel this is good. This is so much fun. A bug may have exposed passwords in plain text, leaving them vulnerable to hackers. Okay, if you say so. This is according to Twitter. There has not been any kind of breach yet to speak of, but they're saying just in case to you know, change your password if you're a Twitter user. I mean, there's only like 336 million of us. I put this in the same, and maybe I shouldn't, particularly since I'm in the media and politics. I probably shouldn't feel this way, but but you know, I feel the same way as I felt, you know, when MyFitnessPal had a breach. I was like, so what are they going to do? Like, hack my account and chastise me for going over my calories, going over my diet, 200 calories? Like, who cares? What are they going to do? Publicize, you know, that I ran less than a mile? You know, it's a Twitter account. I don't protect, and I know my cybersecurity expert, Mike Fitzpatrick, will patently disagree with that opinion. Also, not a big fan of Alexa, but that's a whole nother story. Who's doing great new stuff? And listen, it's a privacy issue. We need to be concerned about our privacy, but I think I have thrown in the towel. Greg Gutfeld says this all the time, that basically privacy's dead. Like, just pretty much get over it. That's pretty much the way I feel about it. Anywho, you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. Thank you so much for joining me. My guest today is Dan Punnose. He's the Vice President of Gospel for Asia. He's going to talk to us about the water crisis in America and worldwide, as a matter of fact. We'll be back in a few moments.
Another leftist judge throws U.S. sovereignty and our Constitution right under the bus. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, U.S. District Activist Memphis Judge John D. Page has ordered the Trump administration to reopen and review applicants who apply for deportation protections under the Defense Action for Childhood Arrivals program. The judge also gave an ultimatum saying that the Department of Homeland Security has 90 days to provide solid reasoning for why the program should be terminated. Forget the fact that former President Obama imposed DACA on the United States to protect more than 800,000 children of illegal immigrant parents who were not authorized to legally be in the United States. The judge also falsely accused Trump of not explaining why he ended DACA. Bradford Berry, General Counsel of the NAACP, expressed glee at the judge's decision to rule on behalf of criminals who have strolled into our republic illegally. I find that ironic that a so-called proponent of helping colored people would be happy that a leftist judge ruled on behalf of illegal immigrants who have been systematically helped by American leftists to displace many black Americans regarding economic opportunities, etc. The problem is, Mr. Berry's hatred of America and her sovereignty supersedes his desire to help colored people. I run it, sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Who likes paying taxes? Nobody. That's why Eva Rosenberg from TaxMama.com wants you to pay less of them. Read Small Business Taxes Made Easy and learn how legally hiring your spouse and children can slash your taxes. Learn how to set up a business plan that minimizes taxes, the benefits of setting up an exit plan, how to avoid getting audited, and how to legally increase your deductible expenses with better record-keeping techniques. Don't let the IRS squeeze you out of every penny. Visit TaxMama.com. Click on Ask a Tax Question to get free answers to your tax and business questions. That's TaxMama.com.
My name is David Barnett, and I've been helping people buy and sell small and medium-sized businesses since 2008. So far this year, I've gone on 5 vacations. It's because I've got my own business. When you get tired of being managed by someone else and you decide that business ownership is right for you without the risk of starting your own unproven enterprise, then come over to businessbuyeradvantage.com. There are over 100 YouTube videos on buying and selling businesses that you can watch for free. That's businessbuyeradvantage.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette, and I am very happy to have with me today the Vice President from Gospel for Asia. His name is Daniel Punnose. He's going to talk to us today about the water crisis in America. And actually, when I promoted the show, a couple of people said that they had already heard of the organization and have a lot of respect for us. I was very glad to hear that. So without further ado, Mr. Daniel Punnose, how are you?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you so much.
I'm excited to have you here, particularly since I got such good feedback on the promo. So before we move forward, can you give us a little bit of your background, your biography?
Yeah, I grew up in basically 2 cultures. I grew up in America and also in parts of Asia, and so I have kind of a perspective on some things. I see things from a Western perspective and also I've been in ministry for quite a number of years, helping kids to be able to go to school, providing clean water, people that are in need, like, for example, in leprosy colonies, different means of education. There's a whole lot of things that we do to try to alleviate a lot of the suffering that people kind of go through that maybe necessarily people don't realize that it happens all around us and all around the world.
Wow. Okay, cool. So now, what does Gospel for Asia specifically do?
Gospel for Asia, our passion is to bring the love of Christ tangibly to people in places that are in most need. And like I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago about bringing clean water, education, hope, helping kids especially be able to go to school. We have over 70,000 kids that we help to be able to get an education. People that most necessarily would never have a chance to go to school, to ever read today, locked into bonded labor, in harsh realities, places where women are not treated very well. We are having thousands and thousands of women through ministry programs.
Hey, Daniel, you seem to be
help them be able to read and write. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You seem to be fading in and out, and I'm not hearing you clearly. I'm not sure if you're moving around at all or anything like that. But
I'm not moving around. Is this better?
Yes, that's much better. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure my audience could hear you clearly because you're saying some really important stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want people not to hear me.
Exactly. No, that's much better. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure it was crystal clear.
No problem.
So go ahead, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just mentioning that, you know, a lot of the things that we do is to really hit at the root issues of where people are suffering the most, where it may be with water crises or in terms of helping kids to be educated, breaking the cycle of poverty, and, you know, looking for real tangible means for people to be able to have a future and to be able to have clear direction in their life. Lots of people have ideas, or they bring awareness of a crisis, or they bring kind of a challenge for a cause. But, you know, what we look for is trying to bring permanent change and permanent solutions, and kind of that's what we're all about. And we do this, of course, in the name of Christ's love wherever we go. And so trying to love one another like Christ mentions, you know, for us to be able to do that.
And that's certainly, in my opinion, you know, part of the church's job. One of its main functions, in my opinion, is to do that. And is your organization affiliated with a specific church or a religion or anything like that?
Yeah, you know, we're Christian in faith, but we, you know, look for opportunities to be able to work with people to bring real change. So all of our work is in Asia, as the name mentions, Gospel for Asia, even though we do a little bit of work outside of Asia also. But we partner with groups that are having the same mindset and the same heart to be able to help those that are desperate and kind of facing crises. Like, for example, you know, in the early 2000s and forward, there was some tsunamis and earthquakes and different things that happened. And even recently, the earthquake in Nepal that just devastated the country, because we already have infrastructure and network in those areas, we were some of the first people to actually bring relief, food, water, shelter, blankets, cooking utensils, and help where people were still trying to mobilize things to get into those places. We were already there doing those things. And so, you know, us along with so many other groups bringing relief, and that's kind of what we do everywhere. But, you know, we are Christian in faith, and we follow Christ as Christ called us to be his disciples, and to love one another and to demonstrate his love practically.
I like that. And I like the way you put that you're demonstrating his love practically. Now, I found it outside of Flint, Michigan, which I think many of us know about. I found it interesting that there was a water crisis at all in America because, you know, to be frank, we're America, you know. So, you know what I mean? So you're going, like, what kind of water crises could there possibly be in America?
Yeah, right. I mean, it's kind of actually shocking to realize that even in our country, that there are areas and places where either people don't have access to clean water, or a catastrophe or a crisis happens, and then there is no backup system. And so you mentioned about, you know, Flint, Michigan. That's pretty well known, you know, because of it was all over the news and how that all went down. But to realize that, you know, people trying to save money on certain infrastructure, which cascaded into people really just not having good water that would make them sick. That's a pretty dangerous thing. Now, this happens all around the world, and this is kind of a common thing, and so people have to deal with it. But a lot of times in Western countries where this is not a common thing, the crisis is elevated to a higher level because people don't know what to do, and they don't have a lot of backup plans for this kind of situation. And so, people in Flint, I mean, they were drinking just bottled water, brushing teeth with bottled water, cooking with bottled water, taking baths with bottled water. I mean, it was really, really bad. But again, it's an example of us being so dependent on a certain way of life that when something rocks our way of life, we really don't know what to do. And that it's slightly different in places like Asia, where the normal everyday life is a crisis. Every single day is a crisis, and you're just trying to survive, just trying to get by, just trying to have a meal on the table. And so I think, a lot of times people don't realize that we get used to something and then we just don't know what to do, especially we're so used to our systems, and when our systems break, we get kind of face crises in this way. But like you said, Flint, Michigan, I think is probably the most well-known issue because it's so recent, and also just how devastating it was, where people, it was high levels of lead in the water and all kinds of things that just happened that kind of went down with that. But the reality is the same issue is all around the world. These things are happening even in our own country, which I don't think anyone ever expected that. I mean, people kind of think in these terms, well, we got computers and we got this, we got paint codes, like how can we not have, good water to drink? And so, I think people have to be very aware of not only the need to conserve water. That's kind of looking at like how do we save water, but also looking forward to as cities grow and as infrastructure grows, what are new initiatives, and are people being educated in our engineering colleges and engineering schools to be able to tackle the future difficulties of water issues. This is not such a simple thing like just collect water in the rain barrel or just have a filter. You're dealing with tens of thousands of people, and there has to be real solutions. And part of the solution is, yes, educating people on what to do in terms of saving water, filtering water, cleaning water, not wasting it, but then also there has to be proactive measures on what do we do going forward as we look forward to the next 20 to 30 years. And so those are real questions that are before us that need real thinking and real answers.
Indeed. I mean, you need water for really for your survival, seriously. I mean, you just do. And I mean, that's obvious. Now, I don't know if you heard the report a couple of days ago, like 2 days ago, there was a report about dozens of military installations having contaminated water. I don't know if you caught that story or not, but the Department of Defense reported that recently, within the last couple of days. And
it wouldn't.
Go ahead,
it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, like you said, it's popping up all over the place where people it's places where we don't expect, and we just get used to something, then all of a sudden something else like this happens. I mean, you're exactly right. It's kind of it is a crisis that fully pops up everywhere, and water is one of those basic things that we all need. You can't really survive without it.
Exactly. Now, one story that I read said it was 126 cases, and that the chemicals found were related to cancer. And I think, one of the first things that we ask ourselves, particularly since, in the United States, we have all these systems in place, is how can Flint, Michigan happen? How can, we get contaminated water on our Army bases, like our most precious people who defend all that we have here in the United States? Like, how does that happen? Do you attribute it to money, bureaucracy? What do you attribute those instances to here in the United States?
Whenever we look at issues, whether they are in the U.S. or they are across the world, it's not something where you can pin, on one issue. It always seems to be a compounding thing, whether it has to do with money or infrastructure, or human error, or people are just being neglectful for their responsibilities. I think it's a compounding thing, and I think each crisis will have a different issue. So, like in Flint, Michigan, it had to do with people want to save money into the bad pipes and a whole bunch of other things. In other places like Cape Town, of course, this is a different, city outside the U.S. They were on water rations. I mean, 13 gallons of water per day per person. Rationing water for a very, very long time. I was talking to one of our guys there. Now, what is their issue? Their issue is drought. It wasn't neglect. It was just drought. But the infrastructure to filter seawater is not as strong. And so what they're doing is they're actually building up the infrastructure to filter seawater because they know this is going to happen again. And so, like I mentioned, it's never one little tiny thing. It's always a compounding effect. But what I say, whether it's in the U.S. or whether it's in Asia or whether it's across the sea or whether it's in Cape Town, is each of these things are a learning lesson for all of us. It's easy to blame and to point fingers, but then there has to be some decisions made where we learn from this and say, okay, we get it, this can't happen again. What are we going to put in place to make sure that these steps don't happen and these things are followed so that we can go forward? Because we have to, it's easy to keep, looking back and forget that we have to look forward and actually make clear decisions going forward. And so, I think it's a compounding effect all over the place, but the answer is also what can we learn from it? And then, especially those who are studying to be engineers, to find real good solutions that can actually alleviate a lot of these things.
I agree with you. I have a friend who's an engineer, and smart as a whip. I don't know why she's friends with me. But I'm kidding. But I can't help but think that this is connected to money in some situations, like you were saying about Flint, Michigan, and the infrastructure going bad. And as much as we hold our bureaucracies accountable or try to, like, how would a person know? Like, how would Jane Q. Public or Joe Q. Public know that their infrastructure was not being taken care of? Like, unless you, I don't know, like paid really close attention to published reports. They publish a lot of reports. A lot of them you can't really understand unless you're like some kind of like genius. These government reports I'm referring to. And I sometimes I feel like they're intentionally, hard to read and hard to understand for like your average person, even if you attempted to. I'm just trying to think, like, particularly here in the United States, how could the average citizen stay on top of that to help avoid what you're talking about? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, and that is one of the biggest challenges, I believe, like what you brought up, is how do people who are not able to understand the reports or don't have access to the information, how do they get the information, or how can they even understand it? I think you hit on something a little earlier, is when there are issues with either finance or there are issues with the infrastructure where people are supposed to be responsible for it. I think sometimes only when a crisis happens, that is when things come to light and then things can be fixed. There is no easy answer for this. I mean, like, for example, you've got issues in, Florida where it's not about money, but it's just basically the seawalls are not sufficient to keep the seawater out, and you've got, the drainage system not able to deal with the rainfall. So that's a completely different issue, and yet it causes the same problem. So sometimes when we see something happening, we need to quickly learn from it and correct it and fix it. Like, for example, Cape Town, South Africa, that's just a drought. It is one of the things, I think, where we can learn, we learn. Where we can prevent, we prevent. And what we can do is think for the future and think about our children, because they're the ones who are going to inherit these issues or non-issues, whatever we can take care of in the future. I think, if we can follow that principle, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, kind of the golden rule thing that a lot of us read as kids. Think about the future, think about our kids and our grandkids, and we will want to make things better for today, for them for tomorrow.
For sure. And I'm just thinking in terms of the holding, it just seems to me that in the United States that, you know, we have people that we elect who are responsible for these things. And if they're not, like if it comes down to government regulators or whomever is supposed to be the people who check these things. Like, you know, of course, Flint, Michigan is a complete and total disgrace. 100 and how many bases is it? 126 military bases with contaminated water. That's a disgrace. There should be some oversight there. You know, and listen, not that it's okay in countries that are not, you know, as wealthy as the West is and as developed as the West is. It's certainly not okay. But you would think that we would be able to monitor our situation successfully in such a way that that would never happen here, certainly, and that we would be able to transfer that knowledge and that information over to those underdeveloped countries. I mean, if we're going to help them do anything, I would think trying to help them get water would be, you know, kind of like a really big concern. I kind of asked you a lot there. Do you work with the Gospel for Asia, work with any government entities in that regard as far as here or abroad?
You know, a lot of the things that we work in Asia, we do work in connection with the government's agenda of trying to either bring clear, you know, sanitation or water to places that are devastated. And you know, it's like you mentioned. I mean, it's two different scenarios, but the end result is similar. So, you know, kind of interesting. You know, when I was growing up in my father's village, in you know, an Asian village, we had an open well that we pulled a bucket of water out, and we had a giant fish that would live down there, eat the mosquito larvae, and we put the water through a towel into the bucket, and then we would boil the water, and then we pour it through a filter. I mean, that's the reality for everyone in the village. You pull a bucket of water out, and you boil it, and you filter it. I mean, that was just normal. What the reality is for most of, you know, these poorer countries, especially like places like India or Nepal or Sri Lanka, is that people will walk sometimes 3, 4, 5 miles away to get some water. A lot of times there is no water in the village. You have to walk far away. So it's a different crisis, and one of the crises about that is that the women and the girls are the ones often who have to walk for miles a day to fetch water for cooking, for cleaning, for bathing, and for everything else for the family. And because of that, you have these girls, because they are fetching water, don't have the ability or the time to be able to go to school. And so now you have another problem, lack of education, and then you end up with another problem of generation after generation that's kind of locked into this hopeless situation. So even providing water, and I know this is a different issue than we're talking about, you know, here in our own country, but water crisis in other places means it affects the whole family down to the place of education and even being able to hold a job. And so what we do is we provide door wells, we provide biosand filters. So biosand filters are these warm boxes that have different layers of sand and gravel, and you pour dirty water on top and clean water comes out the spout. It's a filtration system based on gravity, and it's pretty amazing. So where there is dirty water, people can actually use these filters for getting water in their home that can be used. For places where there is no water, we provide enhanced wells. So, for example, like about 1 year, I think we were able to make over 5,000 wells in one year to provide clean water for places that didn't have any water. And each of these wells, I mean, they provide hundreds of people a day with clean water. Now, this is completely different than, you know, what you're asking about oversight. Yes, there should be oversight. Yes, there should be systems in place. And, you know, there isn't the answer because there is multiple kinds of crises that happen even in our country. and people should be held responsible, and there should be systems in place. But the main issue that we deal with is bringing education. For example, there are so many places in these poor countries where they don't have proper sanitation, and so the sanitation is next to water supply, so that people are trying to contaminate water, and they get sick, and they don't have money for medicine, and then the kids can't go to school. People lose their job. So for us, it's kind of a holistic approach of education, providing clean water and infrastructure for clean water, and then continuing education on hygiene and how to build up the infrastructure within those villages, those communities, and we are able to see great change. Now, this is way off topic, but I'll give you an example of basic change that can bring a lot of effect. And I know when I say we can learn from these things even in the country, basic little things can mean a huge difference down the road. There was a university that was doing a study on hygiene and health, and they wanted to figure out what is something sustainable that they could implement into the slums of some of these very poor countries, that the people themselves could continue. It wouldn't have to be sustained from the outside, and would actually bring change in terms of waterborne diseases. So what do? They taught the people how to wash their hands properly with soap. That's it.
That is incredible, because it's something that we take for granted, and squirting Purell, every other minute, and it's a thing. We're up against the break, and I want you to talk to the audience when we come back in like 3 minutes about the statistics, because they are staggering. These are not isolated things. I really want you to talk to the audience about that. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest today is Daniel Punnose. He's the Vice President of Gospel for Asia. We're talking about the water crisis here in America, but not only here, but abroad as well. You would just, in my mind, I thought you would just not think there was a water crisis anywhere, but there certainly is. That's what we're talking about today. I will be back in a few moments.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network. Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcast. sackheadsradio@gmail.com. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty shadow governments and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Miller. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only, all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny, and we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday night. Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, and my guest today is Daniel Punnose. He's the Vice President of Gospel for Asia. We're talking about the water crisis in America. I was looking at when I was doing prepping for the show, I was looking at some of the statistics on this particular subject. It's absolutely crazy. One of the things that I noted was that the American Society of Civil Engineers graded our infrastructure at a D+ in 2017, and that includes our water, does it not?
Yeah, I mean, it's a major issue all around the world. I mean, like you're talking about. It's only when something happens we realize, wow, this is not exactly what I thought it to be. And so, either the infrastructure gets overwhelmed, which I think is what you mentioned a little earlier too, or there's just a clear oversight, or things are just kind of forgotten until something kind of falls there. And exactly like you said, I mean, the infrastructure is a crisis state unless people take it serious to do whatever they can around that as a whole. We will face more of these crises, and lots of people will be affected by this in very, very serious ways, especially the elderly and the young are the ones who usually are affected most severely by either contaminated water or the lack of water. This is what we see all around the world.
Exactly. And, like I said before the break, the statistics are really staggering. The World Health Organization said that 71%, how did they put it? Some of the global facts, 71% of the global population in 2015, at 5.2 billion people, use a safely managed drinking water service that is located on the premises, available when needed, and free from contamination. So what does that mean in terms of who's not? That means 29% of people don't have access to water, like can walk over to the spigot and get water. Right.
I mean, there's so many numbers, and I would encourage people, like you said, to go to either WHO or some of these online resources of things that have been documented. There's all kinds of weirdos out there, but go to actually documented information and actually look at these numbers, and then try to compare these numbers with the total population of the United States, total population of Europe, and some of these numbers are larger than the United States and Europe combined. Like, for example, 663 million people around the world do not have access to safe drinking water. I mean, this is insane. How many people? This is double the population of America that people would not have access to clean drinking water. There is huge crises of over 500,000 people die each year because of waterborne diseases. Simple things like diarrhea, cholera, dysentery, and typhoid. These are things that can be prevented if people have access to clean water or are taught about not consuming contaminated water. So these numbers are beyond. And the problem with us is when we hear these numbers, it doesn't even register because the numbers are so large. How many millions of people don't have access to clean water? And just because my area is good and my fridge gives me clean water and I'm doing well does not mean that it does not concern me. It should concern me, at least to be aware of it, to be careful of how I use water, not to waste water, but also that I could do something to practically at least jump on the bandwagon of so many groups that are doing something to bring help and bring change, especially to the poorest of the poor in the entire world. I'm reminded, like Mark Wahlberg and so many others, they donated, I think, 1 million bottles of water to Flint for the residents. This is crazy. I didn't realize that Anheuser-Busch has given over 79 million cans of clean drinking water. Now, a lot of people may do this because of advertising, whatever, but when someone is sitting there dying because of no water, I'm happy that someone is giving them water.
Yeah,
whatever we can do practically to use our time and resources in our lives to plug in with groups that are doing things and bringing change. I mean, that is something practical. So this is not, if one thing that people remember, this is not an awareness campaign. This is something that is presented before us for us to be able to practically do something to help in a real tangible way.
This is
millions and millions of people are at risk and don't have access to just clean water, which sometimes we take for granted.
I completely agree. I don't want to let you go. We're toward the end of the show, but I don't want to let you go before we discuss something else that Gospel for Asia is involved in, which is ending violence against women by using education and income generation. That is, the article that I read that your publicist sent to me, frankly, was talking about how it's a way to overcome discrimination. And I feel like it's a little bit of a dicey topic when it comes to, helping women to gain independence as a Christian, if that makes sense to you, if you know what I'm saying, because I feel like some Christians, particularly really, really conservative ones, look at female independence as anti-Christian or as feminism, which is two completely different things. That is certainly not what you all are doing here. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think you have to take it all the way back to talking from a Christian worldview and kind of a clear worldview of things where, all of human life is sacred. And we have to recognize that all humans are eternal beings. They will spend eternity with the Lord or without the Lord. I mean, that's for the Lord to know that. But because of that, like what C.S. Lewis said, one of the greatest authors of our time, he mentioned that because we are eternal beings and everyone else around us, we have to recognize that people are made in the image of God and they are precious and they are sacred, and we have to treat people with respect. And that is not whether they are Christian or not Christian. We are to respect people because they are made in the image of God, period. And not just treat our friends better because they're Christians. Christ loved the people who didn't even love him. I mean, hanging on the cross, he asked God, the Father to forgive those people who crucified him. But when you take that perspective and that filter, it no longer becomes just this one-sided thing. But whatever we can do to raise awareness, but also raise human dignity, and especially in places where women are not treated as well, either because culturally or just because of lack of education. A lot of times it's because of lack of education. I am so glad that Gospel for Asia has an opportunity to bring help to literally thousands of women. And it happens in a couple of different ways. One I've already mentioned, I won't labor it again, but by providing clean water opportunities, these women now don't have to walk for miles, which is an endangerment to them, because they're walking alone miles to get water, and now they can get water safely from nearby wells, which they did in these villages. Second, it means that the young girls can now go to school. They don't have to use their time and their energy for fetching water. And this would be true for some of the young boys too, but specifically for women, now they can actually get an education. And you bring education to a life, and we don't realize this, but it is one of the ways to help break the cycle of poverty, to bring permanent change. People don't change just because of a handout. You need education to back it up so they can continue to grow and continue in that. Also, we have opportunities for teaching women a trade, either sewing or some other kind of trade, so that as they grow up, there is something that they can do practically to earn an income. We also have opportunities. I've seen so many people around the world use micro loans and micro donations to be able to alleviate the possibilities of being able to have a business and the alleviation of them having to get a loan which they can never pay back, unfortunately happens a lot. And so you have these multiple ways of helping these women to rise up. One of the things I'm most proud of and excited about is that we have literally tens of thousands of women in our literacy programs. These are women who had never learned how to read and write, and they're learning to read and write for the very first time, which means they can be taken advantage of when it comes to business deals or helping the kids, at school.
That
also, we have probably over 120,000 probably in this last couple of years, women with preventative medical training and care. So being able to make sure the next generation of women, especially young women, are not locked into child marriage or taken advantage of or end up in the sex trade because they are being educated and helped. So there's so many ways. I'm so excited that we are able to actually bring dignity to these women. There's a documentary film that we produced called Balanced Tears. If someone is interested, they can always write to our ministry and request a copy of that. It's about the plight of women and how we are hoping to rescue them and actually bringing real change.
I was looking at the special report that GFA produced, and one sentence really popped out at me. Of course, this is talking a lot about Asia and in countries where women don't have access, but I would submit to you that even right here in the United States, the statement is true. On your website, it says, on the special report, it says, why are women targets of such abuse and discrimination? Why does it almost seem like a requirement for women to silently endure violence against them? And I don't think that that's exclusive to your underdeveloped countries. Women are abused to the tune of 1 in 3 women will suffer some kind of abuse. That's staggering. And even here in the United States, you have these issues where women are abused and they're expected to suffer in silence. Can you imagine being in another country where you don't have the means to get out? You can't get an education. You don't know how to read. You can't go get a job. So, I mean, you're so doing God's work. I love it. And I was going to say, and by the way, if my audience wants an answer to those questions, you can go to the website, which I posted in the Facey chat. That special report on ending violence against women. It's excellent. I hate to cut you off, but we're up against the close of the show. Tell the audience how they can help your GFA.
One of the best things that they can do, I think there's just a couple of different things. One is go to our website, gfa.org. /water, which would bring you to a bunch of information about, kind of the water crisis, especially in Asia. And we talked about, the U.S. specifically, but practical ways that we are dealing with that. Second is use your social media, use your networks, your friends to be able to help bring change. This is, again, it's not just an awareness campaign that, okay, great, we all know about it, but see what you can do practically. Again, go to gfa.org/water, and you can get plenty of information and also learn how you can be part of bringing change that can actually bring a future to people who are in desperate need.
I love it. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. This is my guest, Daniel Punnose. He's the Vice President from Gospel for Asia. I want to thank all you guys out there at SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio Land. Of course, all of you in the Facey chat and all of you who have downloaded this as a podcast and are listening to it that way. I want to thank you so very much. And remember, all of this is very important because after all, it's your money. Have a great weekend.